I mean, this girl, I can tell you just by, as an outsider looking at the Twitter, which I didn't know existed until all this went down, she's not right. She's not normal. I was 20. I partied with bands constantly. I wasn't that kind of girl. And believe me, I had the friends to make me that kind of girl, and I didn't do it. So there's something not right with her.
Like I said, we're just trying to get to the bottom of it with her being missing. Hopefully she turns up.
That's fine. That would be fantastic. Because then everything's like, oh, okay, she's fine. She disappeared. She ran off. She did whatever the hell she did.
When you're young, people often make bad choices, whether they are inconsequential and end in a hilarious story to tell in years to come, or mistakes that fill you with regret, but ultimately teach a lesson. With youth comes the idea of invincibility and the idea that bad choices will either be a story or lesson. For some of us, our bad choices from our youth can haunt us today. But for an unfortunate few, those choices have much graver repercussions. What is up, Iwu crew? Today we are talking about the shocking case of Heather Elvis and the choices that someone in the invincibility of their youth can make that have unforeseen consequences. If you enjoy true crime, mysteries, and true stories, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. In 2013, a 20-year-old Heather Elvis was working at the Tilted Kilt, a Celtic-themed bar in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Though her family often described her as shy, the bar she worked for prides itself on hiring beautiful and scantily dressed young women. The uniform was little more than a plaid miniskirt and cropped white shirt. Heather tweeted almost obsessively about her life, as so many others in their 20s were doing at the time. A family friend said of Heather, "She's at that age where you're going into adulthood and finding out who you are, where you're going, and what you want to do. Your horizon is so open." And that was the essence of Heather. She was waiting tables at the Tilted Kilt to create an income and start building her life. She had just applied and was hired to be a makeup artist at a local salon. In her tweets, she reveals that she was incredibly bored with living in her hometown, but she was also full of life and eager to make something of herself. Perhaps it was a combination of boredom and need for excitement that led Heather to make some questionable choices. Still, she was likely too young to understand what she was doing was dangerous, or, if not dangerous, at the very least, reckless. While working at the Tilted Kilt, Heather met Sidney Moorer, a 38-year-old married maintenance worker. He had been hired to service their industrial refrigerators and freezers. Despite the age difference, her friends reported that she was infatuated with Sidney Moorer from the moment she met him, though they only saw each other a few times a week during her shifts. Heather's best friend and roommate at the time, Brianna Whirlman, reportedly said in an interview, "Heather was a very pretty young girl, and then you have this scruffy guy with his hair in a ponytail. I was like, Heather, are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to go after?" Heather had reassured her friends that she wanted to pursue Sidney, and even told them that he had an open marriage with his wife, TAMMY Moorer. She was certain that TAMMY even had a boyfriend herself outside of the marriage. Brianna was unconvinced, saying she was under the assumption that he was going to leave his wife and that they were going to be together and he loved her and he wanted the same thing. I looked at it as something that could potentially blow up. It is always with hindsight that we often find clarity. So it is only too bad that Heather didn't heed her friend's warning. At some point between June and July of 2013, Heather and Sidney started an affair, with Heather feeling so besotted that she started to tweet about him. On July 7th, she tweeted, "One of these days I will drag that man into the mop closet and have my way with him. Lord have mercy." Only a few days later, her tweets started to imply that their relationship had escalated. By the 10th, she was tweeting, "You're almost as good as my shower," "Baby did a bad thing," and "I'm in way too deep, but watch me get deeper." However, Heather did appear to express some doubts over the relationship on Twitter. On September 20th, she tweeted, "Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well." On November 5th, she retweeted a tweet from comedian Daniel Tosh. "Hey married fellas, you can either cheat on your wife or murder her, never both. That's when you get caught." Sidney claims that he and Heather were only together a few times, though Heather's friends and co-workers said that Moorer would often show up at the Tilted Kilt looking for Heather, bringing her bagels and coffee. Apparently, he was even considering making Heather a nanny for his children, as a ploy to bring his mistress along when he eventually moved to Florida. All of Sidney's plans ended abruptly when Tammy learned about the illicit relationship in October 2013. Whether the relationship was a heated affair or a few late-night hookups, all sources agree that Tammy went ballistic when she found out about Heather. It seemed Sidney had been lying, and they didn't have an open marriage as he had claimed. Tammy had apparently forced her husband of 15 years to call Heather, whom she referred to as the Little Temptress, and end the affair. Brianna and Heather were sitting together when Heather got the phone call from Sidney, which she answered readily. Brianna would later tell investigators that Sidney tore into Heather. He said she was nothing to him, that she was just someone who spread her legs, and that he had never really cared about her. Heather was completely shattered. Brianna said, "The wife threatened Heather and called her over 60 times one day when Heather was at work. She told Heather, 'If you don't stop talking to my husband, I'm going to come after you. You're going to have problems with me.' That's pretty much when it ended." Tammy ran a website devoted entirely to reporting on her family's trips to Disney World and helping other people plan their trips to Disney. From her in-depth posts on Facebook, one can see that she is a deeply loyal woman, some might say possessive, who explicitly expected the same from her family members. From the outside, Tammy doesn't seem like the kind of woman to endlessly harass and denigrate a young girl, yet text messages show otherwise. She started relentlessly texting Heather, even though there is no evidence that Heather had tried to reach out to Moorer after the affair ended, nor that Moorer had tried to contact Heather. Messages from the phone Sidney used to contact Heather show that Tammy had taken the phone to text Heather when she first discovered the affair. The received texts are from Heather, while the sent are from Sidney and Tammy. Most notable are the messages where Tammy explicitly threatens Heather. "Someone's about to get their beat down. Your bitch is about to take his last breath. You can tell me who you are right now or I will find out another way. That way won't have a great turnout for you. I'm giving you one last chance to answer before we meet in person. Only one." Even when Heather replied that she was nobody you need to worry about anymore, Tammy continued to send rage-filled messages, including a claim that she had her husband followed since January 2012. When Sidney recovered his phone from his wife, he reassured Heather that his wife didn't care about her and was only mad at him for lying. Heather told him, "You knew what you were doing. It was no mistake. I understand this can't go anywhere. I just want to know that your wife isn't going to because I lost hours today because they sent me home after she keeps calling." A few days later, Tammy sent more threatening messages to Heather. "Your needs to leave me alone. Stop stalking me, you crazy." Even after Sidney ended the affair, Tammy continued to abuse Heather. Heather even says to Tammy, "I think you're a little obsessed with me." She went so far as to take pictures of her and Sidney being intimate and sent them to Heather. When Heather ignored this harassing message, Tammy texted Heather again. By the way, Dad no longer owns a phone. Here, it seems that she is referring to her husband, Sidney, as Dad. In addition to abusing Heather, Tammy turned her rage on her husband. She reportedly handcuffed Sidney to their bed so that he couldn't sneak out and cheat on her again. She forced him to unlock his phone, and she changed the password so that only she could open his phone. Anytime Moorer left the house, Tammy demanded to be with him so that she could monitor everything he was doing. Though all of this is extreme, Tammy also forced Sidney to do something even more bizarre. She manipulated him into getting her name tattooed on his stomach. After all of this abuse, Tammy started to feel satisfied that her husband was back under control. She then focused her energy on harassing Heather again. She allegedly tried to get Heather fired from the Tilted Kilt by calling and asking to speak to the manager. She detailed the affair and told the staff that if Heather continued to work at the restaurant, her husband would no longer come around to service their equipment. Even with all of this, by mid-November, Brianna said that Heather told her that Sidney had called her, and they were texting back and forth again. Sidney and Tammy and their children then went away to Orlando from November the 19th until December the 11th to enjoy an extended Disney World vacation. With them gone, Heather's family reported that by early December, she was feeling much better about the ending of her relationship with Sidney Moorer, though her tweets and Brianna's testimony suggest that they may have rekindled their romance. Heather had started her new job at the salon and continued to work at the Tilted Kilt, but despite seeming to feel better, her co-workers at the Tilted Kilt were concerned. Because of the revealing outfits the girls wore while working, they had all noticed that Heather had been gaining a perceptible amount of weight. Her bra size had gone up so much that her manager had even asked her to take a pregnancy test, which Heather said had only shown an error and was inconclusive. Heather did not appear to be as concerned about her weight gain as her friends. Instead, she was excited to go on her first real date since her tumultuous relationship with Sidney. On December 17th, she went on a date with Stephen Schiraldi, who had gone to the same high school as her. They went for dinner at Bandito's Restaurant and Cantina in Myrtle Beach before they stopped at a deserted mall parking lot, and Stephen showed her how to drive a stick shift. In the pictures Stephen took of her, which Heather then texted to her father, it is clear that she was having an enjoyable time. Then they went to Stephen's mother's home, where he lived, to watch a movie. Around 1:15 or 1:30 a.m., Stephen dropped Heather off at her apartment, and they shared a goodnight kiss. Later, Stephen would acknowledge that he was likely the last person to see Heather. Around this exact same time, Sidney and Tammy returned to South Carolina from their vacation. At 1:35 a.m. on December 18th, Heather received a call from a payphone at a gas station. She talked to whoever was on the line for about 5 minutes. After, Heather called the payphone back 9 times within 35 minutes, but no one answered. When she seems to give up, records show that Heather immediately called her roommate, who was away for the holidays. They briefly spoke for about 2 minutes, and Brianna recalled that Heather was extremely emotional, and she was crying hysterically and couldn't get her words out. Heather told her he, Sidney, said he left his wife and that he wants to see me. He's sorry for what he said, and he wants to be with me. I said, "Sleep on this and we will talk about it tomorrow." This was the last time Brianna heard from Heather. Later in the day, on the 18th of December, Heather Elvis was reported missing. Piecing together what happened that night is something that is still highly debated. The only real clues are Heather's cell phone records and Sidney Moorer's testimony. At 1:12 a.m., Sidney went into a Walmart and purchased a pregnancy test. He was caught on security cameras entering and leaving the Walmart with the purchased test and a cigar. Sidney explained that he had called Heather at 1:35 a.m. to tell her to leave him alone. The tower pings on Heather's phone records show that in between 2:42 and 2:56 a.m., the phone, and presumably Heather, were inside a restaurant called Longbeard's. The phone leaves the restaurant for a short time, but by 3:01 a.m., It returns to the restaurant and stays there until 3:15 a.m. At 3:15 a.m., Heather's phone leaves the restaurant to call Sidney's cell phone, but he did not answer. Heather returns to her apartment and stays there until 3:25 a.m. During this time, she called Sidney's phone again, and someone answers. Whoever answered talked to Heather for just over 4 minutes. Sidney claims again that this discussion was an attempt to get Heather to leave him alone. Heather then reportedly drove to the Ori Country boat landing in Myrtle Beach. Phone records show that Heather again tried to call Sidney. It pings at the boat landing near the Moorer house as she tried to call 4 more times between 3:25 and 3:42 a.m., and then her phone is shut off. That is the last that is ever heard or seen of Heather Elvis. A security camera mounted on a home near where the Moores live shows a dark F-150 driving down their street towards the nearby boat landing. At 3:45 a.m., the dark truck is seen again driving on the Moores street, but this time away from the landing. Heather's abandoned car was discovered near the boat landing the next day, but there was no sign of Heather. The car seemed to be in pristine condition, locked without any personal items left inside. It was just sitting there, waiting for Heather to come back for it. When examined by Jill Domagauer, a Horry County Police crime scene investigator, she said that there were no signs of a struggle. Once Heather was reported missing, the community of Carolina Forest rallied to search for her. This search spanned not just the Christmas holidays, but into New Year's too. Yet over that time, nothing useful was ever found to help understand what had happened to Heather. The police first focused on Stephen, as he had likely been the last person she was with before she vanished. Stephen had reported that he tried contacting Heather the next day, as they had plans to see each other, but he never heard back. It wasn't until Brianna called him and told him that Heather was missing that he knew, and so investigators eventually cleared him of suspicion. It was only when the police started to investigate Heather's cell phone records that the pieces of her disappearance started to fall into place. They followed her movements in those last few hours and reached out to Sidney Moorer, the man whose phone Heather successfully called twice, and tried to call several more times the morning of December 18th. The police had actually spoken to Sidney first on December 20th at 2:15 a.m. as he stood at the end of his driveway. He was videotaped by the body cam worn by Officer Kenneth Canterbury. In it, Sidney said he didn't go to the Peachtree boat landing where Heather was last seen. Though the video has poor quality,
Canterbury's one on property. He's coming right out here. That will difficulty finding your house.
He is heard saying, "I'm trying to fix things with my wife. I'm not denying it. I'm saying I ended it." Sidney claimed that when he ended things with Heather, he wanted to focus on his marriage, but that she had continued to call him. When suspicion turned towards Sidney and TAMMY Moorer, the police executed a search warrant, but came away with little, except for the couple's cell phones, which contained several explicit pictures, but only of each other. TAMMY was interviewed by the police in January of 2014, more than a month after Heather had gone missing. TAMMY said about Heather, "She's not right. She's not normal. I look 20. I've partied with bands constantly. I wasn't that kind of girl, and believe me, I had the friends to make me that kind of girl, and I didn't do it. So there's something not right with her."
She's not right. She's not normal. I was 20. I partied with bands constantly. I wasn't that kind of girl. And believe me, I had the friends to make me that kind of girl, and I didn't do it. So there's something not right with her.
Regarding her husband's relationship with Heather, TAMMY said, "I had boyfriends. We had an open marriage. It's okay. I could care less if he had slept with 100 people. It doesn't bother me."
You guys don't understand. I had boyfriends. We had an open marriage. Okay. That's okay. I could care less if he had with 100 people. Okay. All right. I mean, that doesn't really, it doesn't bother me. So.
Yet this statement was in direct contrast to a text TAMMY sent to her friend in December that said, "I do not love him. He betrayed me, and I will never ever forgive or forget it. Trust me, there's zero love on my end. On the day before Heather disappeared, Tammy sent another text message that read, "I just had someone cheat on me that I thought was my soulmate. You never know who will screw you over in life. I felt totally betrayed. I'm better off without the liar." In his own interview with the police, Sidney had initially tried to deny that he called Heather on a payphone.
Had you used any other phones that night, your wife's phone?
No.
Did you make any payphone calls?
Nope.
But he admitted that he had called her when the police told him that they had surveillance of him making the call. Sidney claimed, "I asked her to please leave me alone because she'd been leaving notes on our car when I was at work. The first night I got back from vacation, you need to call me."
Well, no, I did call her on the payphone.
Okay. And what did you say?
I asked her to please leave me alone because she had been leaving notes on our car when I was at work.
Sidney's defensive is weak and often strange. It is clear that he knows the evidence against him, and he attempts to explain his actions the night Heather vanished. In an audio recording of Sidney's first interview with police HCPD John Martin, Sidney says that on the night of Heather's disappearance, he was with his wife.
Ever since me and Heather ended our relationship, well, I ended it. Ever since that was ended, my wife found out and all of that went on. My wife's she goes to work with me. We do everything together. We don't split up.
Sidney relates in detail that on the night Heather vanished, he says his wife had been drinking at home before they left, so that Sidney could go to work at 9 to 9:30 p.m., before driving all around town when he finished working, buying the pregnancy test, getting gas for the truck, and making the payphone call before returning home at 2 to 3 a.m. Sidney then explains that his wife had taken her clothes off and put on her robe, and he was no longer wearing socks, trying to make it clear that they had not gone out for the rest of the night.
We're home and my wife had gotten undressed and all. She was in her gown and everything, and I had shoes and socks and all off.
To explain the pregnancy test, he claims he and his wife were trying to have a baby, even though his wife was in her 40s at the time.
I'm almost positive I got a pregnancy test that night. I don't know if it was in that order.
For your wife?
Yes.
Sidney is adamant that Heather had pursued him, that she had been the one to get his number before she started calling him. He claimed that he had no idea how she got the number, though he asserts that she had still been the one pursuing him in December. On the night she vanished, he admits he was the one to contact Heather first, and that she had been leaving him alone at that point.
That's why I called her that night from the payphone.
Okay.
Please, can you stop?
Okay.
Just stop.
How long was that conversation?
A minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Or
Maybe.
4 minutes, maybe?
I guess it could have been that long.
Okay, it doesn't take 4 minutes to tell her, stop, leave me alone.
Well, no, and I mean, she, talked back and said, hey, what's the problem type thing, and I'm like, just leave me alone, please. I said, I know you're leaving notes, and I know you've been by my house.
But she was leaving you alone tonight, or that night, right? She didn't, you kind of instigated conversation.
Well, that night, yes.
Yeah.
This is where he clarifies he had called her to tell her to please leave me alone. He even says he was being intimate with his wife before and after he had called Heather on the payphone.
That was the first time I was able to...
And why? What prompted that? You're having sex with your wife. What prompted you to contact her?
When the interviewer points out that this is odd behavior, he explains that he was trying to stop the whole situation.
Because I was trying to stop the whole situation.
Okay, because she was with someone at that point, one of her friends.
Okay.
One of her female friends. I don't know, Stephanie, or she's got a bunch of them. They probably will dress.
Right.
And she said she got the call and you were talking about wanting to get up with her again because you were going to leave your wife. And I mean, my
wife is with me.
Where was your wife when you called her?
Sitting in the truck.
Okay, so she wasn't sitting next to you.
No, but
did your wife know that you were going to call her?
No.
But she saw you on the phone?
I don't know if she did or not, because I know she was texting one of her friends.
Mm-hmm.
What did you tell your wife you were going to do?
I told her I was running in the store real quick.
Okay, where did you park?
Like across the street.
So you didn't park at the store. You parked across the street from the store?
Yeah, like right across.
Okay.
Because once
you got gas, or you didn't get gas?
I didn't get gas. Well, I did get gas, but I got it at the one at the corner.
Okay, the other store.
Right.
And then you ran across to a different store and used the phone.
Right.
To call and say, leave me alone, to a woman who hasn't contacted.
You need to start over.
Yeah, let's start over. Because
that ain't flying, boss.
What do you mean it ain't flying?
Because I can't see you running
It's
across
literally,
the
I ran
road
across
to another
Seaboard Street. Literally, right across the street.
why?
To use the phone.
Why didn't
to
you
tell
call
her.
her for your cell phone?
Because I didn't want my wife to know I was calling her.
To tell her leave you alone? That's
Yes,
what doesn't
'cause
make sense.
me and my wife
I understand.
discussed and there was no
What
contact
I
to
think
be
you
made.
called her. I think you called her and said, because you were pissed off at your wife about something, and called
I
her.
haven't been mad at my wife in 2 months
Okay.
over anything.
Well, the friend that was sitting next to Heather said that you made comments about not wanting to be with your wife anymore, and maybe it was just something you wanted to get off your chest to Heather, but that's what she heard. Because Heather's like she said Heather's eyes opened up, like maybe things are going to work again.
I'm not leaving my wife.
Well, did you say something like that
I
made her
had no
think that?
intention on leaving my wife.
But did you say something
I
maybe
did not.
thought that you wanted to start up a relationship again?
I did not.
You didn't say anything, so she was confused about what she heard.
I guess so.
In a few instances, Sidney seems to implicate Tammy before retracting his words and rephrasing.
Well, the officer said last night, and this was kind of weirded me out too, that there had been 300 some odd text messages between my phone and her phone in the past 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
Unless my wife's been talking to her, and I doubt very seriously that my wife's been talking to her.
On your phone.
Right.
Sidney even goes so far as to suggest that the police may be framing him, as they had his truck for 11 days, and that he doesn't believe that the day and time in the video evidence of the truck going to the docks are accurate. When asked if Tammy had met Heather, Sidney says that the two women had talked and planned to meet up, but Heather never showed.
Had she ever met her?
No.
Never seen her, never met her?
Nope. And then the following day, I told my wife what was going on, and my wife actually talked to her, and they had planned a meeting, and she didn't show up for the meeting.
He claims Tammy was trying to find out what had actually happened because he had lied to her.
And she was just my wife was just trying to find out exactly what happened. That's all she was trying to find out, because I had lied to her and didn't tell her.
In a later TV interview in 2019, Sidney says that Tammy and Heather had spoken, and he implies there was no animosity, though text messages prove otherwise. He says that Tammy had wanted Heather to accompany her to an attorney to help her get a divorce from him. Sidney says he was shocked when his wife had been arrested alongside him. But it was Tammy's own behavior that led to her falling under suspicion. Tammy was seen on surveillance video just a few days after Heather went missing, suspiciously searching her yard with a hand mirror. She inspects a fountain from top to bottom, using the mirror to see it from all angles. In another surveillance video, Tammy and Sidney are seen cleaning out their truck in the days just after Heather disappeared. They can be seen at the top left of the video. Both instances are strange and suspicious, as it is very unusual to ever use a mirror to inspect a yard, and very coincidental to clean a vehicle immediately after Heather vanished. Neither Sidney nor Tammy gave very good explanations to the investigators as to what could have happened to Heather. Sidney even said he hoped she turned up because that would be fantastic, because everything's like, oh, she's fine, Sidney said.
Like I said, we're just trying to get to the bottom of it with her being missing. Hopefully she turns up.
That's fine. That would be fantastic. Because then everything's like, oh, okay, she's fine. She disappeared. She ran off. She did whatever the hell she did.
Both Sidney and Tammy were arrested for kidnapping a month after their interviews, 2 months after Heather vanished, and the recordings were used as evidence in the case. Prosecutors believed that Sidney and Tammy both lured Heather that night down to the boat landing, where phone records and camera footage placed them. Initially, both Sidney and Tammy were charged with murder and kidnapping. The murder charges were later dropped, as there wasn't enough evidence. In Sidney's case, the jury was unsure of his guilt. 10 wanted to convict, but 2 were just not sure that the circumstantial evidence was strong enough to send a father to prison for the rest of his life. They were hung and the judge declared a mistrial. Tammy, however, did not get off so easily. The prosecution gave themselves more time to build up the case against her, and they had far more evidence of her hatred for Heather, especially given her history of violent and controlling behavior. The keystone of the state's case was a vile Facebook message Tammy had sent one of her friends after Heather disappeared. She called the girl a psycho. She said that Heather's Twitter and Tumblr were evidence that she was crazy. During the ensuing trial, Sidney Moorer was referred to by prosecutors as the evil queen from Snow White, as she had grown increasingly jealous of her husband's relationship with Heather. Senior Assistant Solicitor Nancy Livesay said, "When you mix jealousy, deceit, and just an absolute crazed woman so worried about Heather stealing her husband, that is when unnatural things happen." In the end, the jury agreed. They felt the record of her text messages, her incessant calling the tilted kilt, and Heather's movements during the last hours of her life were enough to prove that Tammy had kidnapped Heather. Tammy was sentenced to 30 years in prison for kidnapping and conspiracy, while Sidney was charged to serve a 10-year sentence for obstructing justice in the case. After the sentencing, Heather's family were asked how they felt knowing that both Sidney and Tammy were behind bars. Morgan Elvis, Heather's sister, said, "It's been so long and all of a sudden something final has happened, and you don't really know what to do next. Nothing changes. Heather's not home. If anything, things are worse because it's not just one family that's ripped apart, it's two." As of February 2019, Sidney is waiting for a retrial on his kidnapping charge. Sidney and Tammy's attorney, Eric Poston, has said that they plan to file a lawsuit in federal court against the law enforcement involved in the case, as well as specific law enforcement officials. They will also be suing Facebook and others who were involved in what they are calling coordinated harassment. He claims that the Moores were lynched by the community, and they were publicly convicted before they had a chance to tell their story. In a tear-filled 2016 interview, Sidney claims that he has been shot at while driving, and his kids are being threatened online. The Moores' attorney says, "We've had to do what the police didn't do, actually investigate. It's going to be incredibly humiliating for the police," which he says will be worth it if it gets two innocent people out of prison and replaces them with the real criminals, if it finally produces justice for Heather, and it will. Today, many wonder if Heather Elvis was pregnant at the time of her disappearance, hinted to by her noticeable weight gain and Sidney's purchase of a pregnancy test. A pregnancy could very well have been the catalyst in her disappearance, but her father, Terry Elvis, had said he couldn't say for sure whether or not Heather was pregnant when she went missing, and so we may never know for sure. That is, unless her body is finally found. Other online conversations indicate that many people believe that Sidney lured Heather to the dock and either helped his wife murder and hide her body, or that perhaps Tammy had caught them and killed Heather herself, making Sidney her accomplice. It has also been pointed out that during the trial, Tammy had a very emotional reaction to seeing Morgan Elvis, as the sisters look a lot alike. Some view this reaction as an admission of guilt, and that Tammy had initially thought she was looking at Heather, the girl she had kidnapped and possibly murdered. What really happened to Heather remains a mystery, as Sidney and Tammy have retained that they are innocent and refuse to give any closure to her family. For now, her friends and family simply have to wait and hope that her body will be found, and then they will finally have answers. Heather's father, Terry Elvis, has said, "We're not giving up. Everything else takes a back seat. It really does. Life does not go on. People around you, their life goes on. But you're still stuck. You're holding on to the hope."